Hello, everyone. Welcome to Falcons Central Radio Show on the Pro Football Central Radio Network. I'm Aaron Freeman, joined by my partner in crime, Scott Karasik. This week we have Southbound and Down's Gene Thomas to talk with us about the Tampa Bay Bucs and Atlanta Falcons Week 10 matchup. And we'll also talk a little bit about some recent Falcons news. And we'll play you our interview with Justin Blalock, Falcons left guard, and we'll get to your mailbag questions in the end. So, Scott, to get us started, we didn't do a show last week. We were supposed to do a roundtable that didn't work out. Apologize to the people. But, there was some Falcons news that came out last week. They signed safety Charles Godfrey. I want to call him Goodwin for some reason. Your thoughts on that move that the Falcons made?
Hey, special teams upgrade. Anything other than that? I mean, it's bonus, but that's all it is. Just a special teams upgrade. He's better than Sean Baker. He's faster. He's more intelligent. He's probably a better safety. Other than that, I don't see any way he's anything more than a special teamer until William Moore comes back. Once William Moore comes back, they're going to cut Godfrey, is my thought.
Okay. I would probably say he's an insurance policy. Shot across the bow, Kamal Ishmael hasn't been so great in deep coverage the last couple of games. But, yeah, it's probably true that he's probably just a short timer until William Moore comes back. Hopefully that's in, 3-4 weeks?
To be fair, if you know what Kamal Ishmael's weaknesses are, why would you keep running him in deep coverage?
I don't know. Maybe because he's a safety and he has to play deep coverage.
Well, yeah, but he's also a strong safety, not a free safety. And he's shown that he can't be a cover 2 safety, and they ran him in cover 2 anyway on that Golden Tate play. So I wasn't exactly happy with the call there. I thought it was just a stupid call. Ugh. And then, yeah, I just think that this Godfrey signing is stupid more than anything else. Like, it's, okay, yeah, you bring a guy in for a couple weeks. He's probably not going to, do anything outside of give you some information on the Panthers' defense, and then that's about it.
Okay. Well, I like the veteran safety. I think that's 3 months too late. I'm not particularly thrilled that they signed Godfrey of choices. I never really was a big fan of him at Carolina, but, something. He's probably going to contribute more in defense than Sean Baker would have done. And I thought Baker was doing a decent job on special teams, but oh well, he'll be back to the practice squad, and he'll be probably invited back to camp next year, and so we'll see what happens with him. But
he's already on the practice squad again.
Okay. Other news happened during the bye week. Our good friend Rashid Hageman found himself in some hot water. For all you people that don't know, he was, I don't know if this has been confirmed or anything, but basically he got caught on Instagram trying to get buy weed. So, there you go.
Yeah, it does sound as dumb as it really is. It's Rashid Hageman being an idiot. And that's the nicest way I can put it.
Wow. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Say stupid is as stupid does, and that's a stupid does kind of thing.
Yeah. I would say, personal opinion, the fact that he was trying to get weed is not really a big deal. The fact that he got caught trying to get weed is probably the bigger deal. I'm pretty sure hundreds, if not thousands, of NFL players regularly partake in marijuana on a regular basis throughout the year, and most of them don't get caught doing it. So,
very true.
I would say, if you get caught, then you might not be one of the brightest people in the world. So, figure out what everybody else is doing to not get caught and do that.
Well, this would also explain a lot about why he doesn't get a ton of playing time. Just saying.
Now, the interesting thing is he on Instagram he was saying him and a teammate were looking for something. Now, who would you speculate who that teammate was? Now, that's interesting.
All right, so who would be a good friend in the same unit that has been in that group and might have been caught with marijuana before? It might just be your favorite player, Aaron.
Yeah, it might be.
And
see,
I were a betting man. That's the money I put on.
Babineau was the smart one because he got Rashid Hageman to go out there and get it. He wasn't doing the one. That's a veteran move right there.
That is a veteran move, making the rookie go get the weed.
Yeah.
However, I would make the rookie on the practice squad go get the weed.
Oh.
But he gets caught. Hey, he gets cut. Whatever. Not the rookie.
Unbelievable.
Draft pick.
Yeah.
I'm in disbelief. I have to go and research that because that's just so hard to believe.
Babineau got caught with weed back in 2008. Missed the game.
Not to this extent that you're using social media to fix your habit.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a little different. That's not a smart move, not a wise move.
Yeah.
Rookie mistake.
Big rookie mistake.
Well, if he produces, I tell you what, winning covers a whole lot of sins. So, Falcons turn it all around, and this guy starts playing good, and he plays exceptional. I'm sure this will all be forgotten.
As long as he plays more than how many is it? 15% of the snaps is where he's at right now. As long as he plays more than that going forward, I don't think he'll have an issue playing well. He just has to get on the field.
Right.
Sorry, 21% of the snaps. So they're not even really playing him. That's the issue.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Maybe he's not too motivated to play.
So, we're going to be seeing a completely different Buccaneers team this week, than we saw in week 3. You're going to have Gerald McCoy, at least there. You're going to have Michael Johnson playing. How healthy are they?
Joe McCoy, if you followed the game, the Cleveland game, he had a pretty good game last week. He was actually getting pressure on the quarterback, and I believe he got a couple of sacks. I mean, he's playing good with the bad hand. Michael Johnson is steadily improving from his injury from the preseason, and he's looking a lot better as the weeks go by. I saw a lot more pressure from him on the edge, so it's a lot that I'm excited about. Sims, our running back, I mentioned last week, I thought was coming back. They held him out, and they went with Bobby Rainey and Mike James. But you will see the rookie running back that we drafted in the second round playing this week as well. He has been activated. Josh McCown has been named the starting quarterback, and Mike Glennon is benched. So I don't know what to expect come Sunday, but we have a lot of players that are getting healthy at the right time. So something that I'm looking forward to.
Well, I noticed your defense seems to play better when Mason Foster's there in the middle, barking the orders.
Oh, absolutely. And he was his rookie season, he was thrown in trial by fire. The next season was a short strike-shortened season, so he didn't really get to show what he can do. And we've gone through regime changes, so I think he's at a point where he should be making the calls. I know that Levante David, they had talked about sharing the role between Levante David and Mason Foster. So, that all remains to be seen what they end up doing on Sunday.
Well, Foster's more of that loudmouth, feisty leader that Sean Weatherspoon personality, that Luke Kuechly personality, that Curtis Lofton, Jonathan Vilma type personality, where they're gonna be in your face, taking command of the defense. It's their defense kind of thing. So,
oh, absolutely.
That's why I would think Mason Foster would make sense for that more than David, because David's more of that like sit back and just make plays kind of personality.
Right. And that's pretty much what you've seen from him. I know with this being a new defense, new defensive coordinator, we finally are not using the blitz as our base defensive package. So we actually have a defense in place and a defensive coordinator. We just need the pieces to go with it. And with the injuries earlier on in the season and people are starting to get healthy now, you'll start to see a little bit more pressure. I do expect more pressure from the front four, McDonald, um, uh, Johnson, and Gerald McCoy as well. So I think this will definitely be a different game than the blowout that we saw on Thursday night.
Now, Jake Matthews and Justin Blalock are getting healthy, and they should be basically fully back up to speed with the bye week. They got to rest their body. They got to rest, Blalock got to rest his back up. Jake got to rest his ankle up. Do you think that a fully healthy McCoy versus a fully healthy Blalock and a fully healthy Johnson versus a fully healthy Matthews is going to be a fun thing to watch this week?
Oh, absolutely. And another thing, Daquan Bowers is coming off of the suspension, the 2-game suspension that he was given for whatever substance he was using. So I know he's kind of been a disappointment, but I expect them to use him and feature him as much as possible to decide if they're going to keep him around next season. I know that the next big signing will be Levante David. The Buccaneers will definitely go hard to re-sign this man. And, Daquan Bowers has not played up to the second round drafting that he was given. So hopefully, he shows what he can do. And if they do keep him around, he comes into shape next season. So I don't know. We'll see.
Quick question. You mentioned this earlier. Josh McCown, Mike Glennon, the quarterback controversy. Who do you think should start this week?
Personally, I would like to see Mike Glennon, but he did not do enough to secure the starting quarterback position, so it is up in the air. You look at Josh McCown, who's a career backup, but he was brought in with a hefty salary. It wouldn't make sense for the Buccaneers organization to sit this guy on the bench if he's fully healthy, and Mike Glennon is playing so-so. He's not playing like he won the starting position. So, I mean, it would make sense, it does make sense, the decision that they made to start McCown, because of all the money that they have invested in him. They are going to get their money's worth out of this guy. I think right now what you're looking at is who's going to be the backup for the next season.
Okay, so you're presuming that Bucs are going to make a move to get a quarterback this offseason.
Oh, absolutely. If you look at the NFC South top to bottom, everybody's got a franchise quarterback. You have Ryan, you have Breeze, you have Cam Newton, and the Buccaneers have and it's been that way for some time. In the history of the Buccaneers organization, Doug Williams, Vinny Testaverde, they actually drafted Trent Dilfer, was the actual last quarterback that they invested in as a franchise quarterback, and they just have not gone that direction. The Buccaneers have not had good success with drafting first-round quarterbacks. What were you saying?
They did draft Josh Freeman. He's just not.
Oh yeah, Josh Freeman. Excuse me, Josh Freeman. How can I forget? And but you see where Josh Freeman is right now.
Yeah. I don't know. Where is
he's not in the league right now.
Okay, that's okay.
Yeah, the Madden League.
Yeah, you can still see him on Madden 15.
Okay, is it available?
But and a lot of people I know in Bucs Nation, a lot of people were upset about the Mark Barron trade, and I think I mentioned this last week. I was really upset that we didn't draft Luke Kuechly, but that's water under the bridge. I can't dwell on that. But Mark Barron never progressed as a cover safety. With the cover 2 scheme is predicated on being able to cover over the top. You are the last line of defense, basically, to help your cornerbacks. And he seemed lost. And I remember his rookie season, and I was like, oh, he's a rookie, he's learning the system. But he just never progressed to the point where he could be that player that you draft as a 7th pick in the first round, unfortunately.
To be fair, at the time, when they traded up for him and then took him, I laughed. Just laughed for like an hour.
Yeah.
Like, how did they actually make that pick? That was stupid.
Well, this is what you have to consider, and I don't know how familiar you guys are with our organization, but when Mark Dominic was the general manager, he reached on so many different picks that he went for. He reached for Josh Freeman. They traded up for Josh Freeman. Daquan Bowers, they shouldn't have taken Daquan Bowers, and they did. They just reached for all these players that would have probably fallen into their laps. And if you look at our draft picks from that, let's say 2009, let's start there. We don't have any players that are on that team currently. This is a sad state of affairs based on really poor drafting and not getting the right free agents in place. So I think with Lovie Smith, a lot of people are really disappointed in this season, but I really do believe that we are on the right path, and eventually we will get to where we need to. With him moving players out and getting his players in, you'll start to see it a little bit more.
Now, some of those guys are going to stick around. Like Levante
absolutely.
Davis, there's no way
Absolutely.
he doesn't stick around.
Yeah,
There's no way that like Mason Foster doesn't stick around.
Yeah,
There's no
there
way-
are some solid pieces on that defense, but they need help. And Altron Werner needs help on the other side. Banks is good. I think it may take a little bit longer for Banks to develop. I do see potential with Jonathan Banks. Other than that, we don't have anybody at corner, to be honest.
Now, I was kind of jealous that you drafted Austin Seferian-Jenkins. How is he healthy for this time around?
He's still learning the system, and I think that once they get him into the into the offense, you'll see a little bit more out of him. Right now, we don't have an offensive coordinator, which for us to score any points is amazing to me, that we don't have an offensive coordinator who's out indefinitely, and we have a quarterbacks coach that is making all the play calls for us. So I'm pleasantly surprised. I thought that the offense would be the Achilles heel of the team at the beginning of the season. I really didn't have high hopes for us, scoring a lot of points. But when you have Mike Glennon throwing touchdowns, and I just didn't see it without having that offensive coordinator in there trying to open up the offense a little bit more.
You talked about Charles Sims coming back. Now, basically, if I'm not mistaken, he played one preseason game and had maybe 16 yards or something in that game. So what are the realistic expectations for what he can give, particularly this week? Because we're a Falcon show, we don't really care about this week. But obviously, I'm assuming you're expecting bigger things as the season goes on. But what do you sort of expect him to do this first week back?
Well, I expect him to get his bearings. I don't expect them to set him up for failure. Him playing third downs or catching balls out of the backfield, which was the reason they drafted him, is because he has good hands for a running back, and that was the big, I guess you would say, selling point for Sims. Great runner in the gaps, and I've actually seen some film on him in West Virginia. Right after the draft, I went and looked at some film just to see what his potential is. I know it's college, but I think right now what the Buccaneers are doing is preparing him for next year. We are we're a one-win team right now, and you're wanting to see what you have for next year. This is where you start to play players and see if they're going to stick around or if you're going to fill these needs, because there will be a lot of needs that will need to be filled.
Another question. What's going on with the defense? Because I think certainly my expect. I thought the Bucs would be a lot better team than they have been this year. But I thought a lot of that was going to be built upon Lovie Smith coming in and sort of taking the talent that they already had in McCoy and David, and they added Werner and all those other guys, and basically being able to mold them into probably one of the better defenses in the NFL. Obviously, that hasn't come to fruition. Is it the issues that they have simply because they still need to get more pieces, or is it just because, it's the natural learning process that, installing a defense doesn't have change occur overnight?
Right. I totally get what you're saying, and I was right there with you. I thought that the defense was going to be the biggest part of the Buccaneers team, but with the injury to Adrian Claiborne getting injured, torn biceps, out for the season, that's one of our ends right there. Supposed to be the other bookend for Johnson. Johnson not being 100%. And I know that these are players, but let's be honest. If you're not 100%, you can't go out there and give what your full potential is. So what I'm seeing here is a lot of this is learning curve. And they interviewed Warren Sapp and they've interviewed Derek Brooks, who both said learning the cover two, which is what the premise of this is, took them 8, 9, 10 games to really get comfortable with this new defense. So I'm not making excuses, but this is what I see. I don't see them really running to it or really adapting to it like they should. I'm starting to see a lot more promise with the protection they were getting against Cleveland. The defense was really getting after the quarterback with Cleveland. You take it for what it is. It is the Cleveland Browns, is who we played, but getting pressure on the quarterback is the main premise of the cover two defense, and you just haven't seen it all season. You're starting to see it. You started seeing it a little bit against Minnesota. You saw it a little bit more against Cleveland. So it is something that I think that gradually it will get better. And to the second part of your question, I do believe that once we start getting these other pieces in place, whether it's through free agency or through the draft, where we will have all of our draft picks, you will see a totally different team from what you're seeing this season.
Gerald McCoy got a big contract. So my first question is, do you think he was worth like $98 million or whatever? And my second question is in relation to the Falcons, because the Falcons are breaking in a new center. There's an undrafted free agent, James Stone, who's making his second start this week. And basically that's a potential. When you look at the Falcons interior, you have Justin Blalock, you have John Asamoah, two really good players that
Absolutely
aren't exactly on McCoy's level, but certainly can, potentially contain McCoy and keep him from being Gerald McCoy. But in Stone, you have a situation where you have a young player who probably won't be able to handle Gerald McCoy. And so I'm curious, do the Bucs, from what I've seen watching the Bucs, basically it's Gerald McCoy lining up on the left side of the defensive line and playing three technique the majority of snaps. Do they move him around, and is there a possibility that they would maybe put McCoy, line him up as a one technique or a nose tackle over Stone to try to get a better matchup in the interior?
Well, to answer your first question, I'm really happy that they were able to sign Gerald McCoy. I'm going to give you a case in point. 2011, when Gerald McCoy went out, the Buccaneers were they won 4 games. They didn't win any more games the rest of the season after Gerald McCoy went out. Gerald McCoy is the catalyst for this defense. You saw that against the Falcons. There was no pressure whatsoever. This was Matt Ryan had 5, 10, 15. He went out and got a sandwich and came back and threw a touchdown. I mean, it was just there was no pressure, and it's like the heart and soul of the team was gone. The Buccaneers had to sign Gerald McCoy. And I think top to bottom, if you talk to anybody in the NFL, any team in the NFL, they would take Gerald McCoy and start him right now. And that speaks volumes about how good he is.
Even Detroit with Nick Fairley and Ndamukong Suh would bench Fairley for Gerald McCoy. He's that damn.
Yeah. And, the Atlanta Falcons, I really feel bad for the team. This is probably the only season you'll hear me say this about the Atlanta Falcons. I do like your coach. I like your head coach a lot. he's done wonders for this organization, going all the way back to Jerry Glanville and before Jerry Glanville. And I think he deserves a chance to play with a squad that has the talent. It's where he can coach the talent. Because you couldn't take this team and play it against a team 3 years ago, because a team 3 years ago would just mop the floor with this team that you currently have. So I mean to get off the subject, but
I disagree. Not that the team 3 years ago wasn't great. I'm saying that the Falcons don't have talent. I think they've got enough talent where they should be at least 9-7, 10-6 this year.
You're missing pieces. I mean, I understand what you're saying, but I disagree. I think you're missing pieces, and that speaks volumes of your general manager.
Well, no, I'm saying with the right coaching, not playing Jonathan Babineau as a defensive end, not playing Tyson Jackson over 50% of the snaps, actually playing some of the younger guys, actually playing Corey Peters for Pete's sake. Peters is the best defender the Falcons have right now, both against the run and on interior pass rush. Massaquoi is the best edge player the Falcons have. They need to be seeing the most snaps, and they're seeing under 40%, under 45% each. Mm-hmm. They should each be playing at least 65%.
Yeah. Well, like I said, man, I just think that for what he's done, I think that he deserves to have that team, that team out there. Your running backs, I like some of your running backs, but I honestly believe that, without a good tight end, a really good tight end, I mean, to help stretch the field a little bit, you haven't really had that guy since Tony Gonzalez. I watched the Falcons, and I will say that one game, the game in England, you guys should have won that game. I think that was play calling. I think he went too conservative. I don't know if I'm right about that, but that's what I saw was he got conservative at the end. But honestly, you guys should have won that game.
And during the first 2 games of that losing streak, the Falcons were still running stupid defensive concepts like putting Jonathan Babineau at defensive end in a third and 14. They put Babineau as a defensive end against Teddy Bridgewater and said, hey, rush the passer, with Croy Bierman as the pass rushing defensive end on the other side. I mean, some of the calls are dumb. Playing Croy Bierman 90% of the snaps, dumb.
Yeah.
Like, that's coaching. That's coaching and stubbornness of not wanting to play the right guy.
Yeah. Well, like I said, you got to give the guy a chance. But to get back to your back to the second part of your question, Gerald McCoy, his strength is the 3 technique. I don't think I've seen too many players that have the explosiveness to get off onto the ball as Gerald McCoy does in that technique. I don't know if you paid any attention last year. They ran a lot of stunts with Gerald McCoy, and he hated it. I mean, he went to Greg Schiano and said, you need to stop with the stunts. You need to let us go get the quarterback. And I just don't think that Lovie Smith has that type of mentality. He wants you to play that technique and go get the quarterback. So I don't think you'll see any kind of changes. He will stay in that 3 technique, and that's kind of what you'll see.
Yeah, I mean, there's only 4 guys that I think have done the 3 technique better than Gerald McCoy. Warren Sapp, J.J. Watt, whenever he lines up in it.
Yeah.
Just naming explosive players here. That's all I'm doing. Trying to think of who the other one was.
John Randall?
No, Kevin Williams in his prime. But Kevin Williams circa 2008.
Yeah.
And then the other one, John Randall. I was like, the Minnesota Viking.
Yeah.
Kevin Williams.
Batman.
And then
I always think of Batman.
Better as well. Atkins, Watt, and John Randall. Pretty good company.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. But it's going to be a good game. It's definitely one that I'm actually looking forward to. I think I may try to do a show at this sports bar that I just found, and because I'm really excited about the game. I love playing the Falcons, even though that was a big blowout on Thursday. It's one of the games I do look forward to because I'm not, that's one of the teams that I've got a lot of friends that are in Atlanta, so we have a healthy animosity towards each other. But it's always fun to trash talk and talk about the game.
Well, for both teams, winnable game that they have left on their schedule, pretty much. So, whoever loses this game, it's not going to look too pretty good for the rest of their season. It's all downhill.
Yeah. So, while I have you guys, what do you guys think about the draft? Are you guys thinking that far ahead now, or is it still possible to touch in Atlanta?
I want Randy Gregory in Atlanta, and I think Marcus Mariota is going to be the guy that they're going to have to attack in Tampa after this year.
Oh wow, I'm just not a big Mariota fan.
Really? Mariota's a great quarterback.
Yeah, against mediocre teams, but I mean when he's playing against
competition question. That's so. So are you one of those like, oh, it's against the Pac-12, they're not the SEC, so they don't count?
I live in Phoenix, Arizona, and I'm telling you, I just don't. I mean, against better defenses, he just doesn't do good against pressure. He just doesn't. I don't know what it is.
So you build him an offensive line like you do for any other competent quarterback.
Okay.
Even Mark Sanchez looks good with an offensive line protecting him. And
yeah, you make a valid point.
So
but that's not the guy that I want to see.
Mariota's got decent mobility to where he can evade pressure, much better than Sanchez.
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of Mariota this week. I think he's a little overrated, but that's me. But yeah, if he's the guy, then sure, take him, Bucs. That'll be good for the Falcons.
Exactly. I'm thinking more like a Jameis Winston.
Yeah, I don't see that happening with Lovie Smith.
Yeah. Can only hope. I thought the Bucs would get Teddy Bridgewater, but I'm happy with Mike Evans.
Lovie Smith is not Lewis. He's not the guy to take a troubled soul and turn him around.
Right.
Well, he took Jay Cutler, but he didn't turn him around, I guess.
He didn't turn him around. He just pulled him into a back door and said, if you throw another interception, you're benched. And then Cutler didn't throw another interception for like 6 straight games.
Oh, yeah. But I don't know. I just cringe. I still think about Rex Grossman and how he played Rex Grossman for whatever reason, and I don't know. So I always cringe. There's always that moment.
Well, the downfall of Lovie in Chicago was his inability to get above-average play out of his quarterback in his offense.
Mm-hmm.
And so you do have to be a little bit worried about that, I guess, if you're a Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan, when you're going into a year where you're going to probably be looking for a quarterback. Historically, he hasn't done a good job addressing that position. So
yeah,
it's a little worrisome.
Well, I think with Jason Light and what he's done, what he did with the Arizona Cardinals before he came to Tampa, working with that organization, and you see where they are now. I really think that I'm confident that they'll make some good decisions if they allow him to make those choices.
I want to talk to you a little bit about that. Obviously, the Bucs have been pretty big spenders in free agency the last couple of years. It hasn't exactly worked out in their favor in a lot of cases. This offseason, you guys signed Anthony Collins, you signed Michael Johnson, Brandon Myers, Josh McCown. Not really any of those guys have really sort of met the expectations. You look at a guy like Collins, who got replaced by O'Neal Cousins last week, and Cousins did a pretty decent job, which, Cousins is not a very good football player. I remember watching games last year where Paul Solai was just destroying him.
He looked like a turnstile where he was just like...
Yeah, and so
it's not...
Do you feel like that's a bad sign that Collins is getting outplayed, at least for one game by O'Neal Cousins?
I think that it was just a wake-up call for him. Honestly, if you look at top to bottom, the majority of these players were career backups. Uh, not Johnson, but Collins didn't start. Um, Myers? I don't think Myers started. I'm trying to think of other than Johnson and Altron Werner, McDonald, all starters, but everybody else, McCown and our offensive linemen were all backups. I don't think any of them were starters. So I don't know. I kind of worry. Huh?
Mankins.
Oh, Mankins came after the big deluge of all the free agents that we got. Mankins definitely was a starter, but on the offensive line, they just I don't think they hit any home runs with that. The only player that I've seen that I see potential is Werner. Werner's solid. He did give up the touchdown, but he didn't have coverage over the top. That's another story. But Werner is solid. Johnson, I think once Johnson gets healthy, he'll be better. And I just, I think it's just taking a little bit longer for some of these players to gel and learn the defense. So I'm a little disappointed with the free agency. And personally, I would have never picked up McCown based on 5 games as a starter in Chicago. He would have never been on my radar, but that's just me.
Speaking of Werner, now I think one of the reasons why the Bucs got blown out by the Falcons in Week 3 was because they really had a bad game plan to deal with Julio Jones, and they basically put Jonathan Banks on an island against Julio Jones, and Jonathan Banks is not that type of corner that can stick with Julio Jones one-on-one. So this week, do you think they'll, be smarter and say, hey, let's put Werner on Julio Jones and let him shadow him a little bit, and at least Werner has a chance against Julio Jones, while Johnson or whoever the heck else your cornerbacks are have no chance, and probably leave those guys to sink or swim against the Falcons' other receivers who aren't very good.
No, they're going to try to bracket him with Jonathan Banks and Deshaun Golson the way that the 49ers tried to back in 2012 with Deshaun Golson and, who's the corner? Old guy.
Terrell Brown.
Rodgers, yeah. So I think that's going to be a similar game plan to that because that's Lovie Smith's scheme. He runs that cover too.
You may see, I don't know, depending on how they have it set up, Major Wright looked really good. He didn't blow a lot of coverage. He looked better than Barron did, especially on passing situations. So I don't know. It's kind of interesting that you brought that up. I think that they'll definitely game plan a lot better. Hopefully, more pressure on the quarterback will give Ryan less time to throw the ball, and that's, as I mentioned earlier in the show, that's the premise of the cover 2 defense is pressuring the quarterback. So if we can get pressure on the quarterback a little bit, I think this is going to help our secondary a whole lot.
Obviously, the Bucs were talked about a lot leading up to the trade deadline. They did make a couple of trades. They traded Barron. They traded Jonathan Casillas. What was sort of the mentality when you hear names like Vincent Jackson, and you hear names like Doug Martin might be on the trade block? Was it kind of just like you're just waiting for some big blockbuster deal to happen that Tuesday?
Well, for me, I've thought that anybody's tradable. Anybody that was already here prior to Lovey getting here. I've always believed that when a new regime comes in, as we've seen, as the Buccaneers have seen over the past years, when a new regime comes, anybody's possible to get traded or let go. So with Doug Martin, yeah, I could have potentially seen him getting traded, only because he's been very injury prone here lately, and you've seen more production out of Bobby Rainey and Mike James, and they've even drafted the other running back, even though they had Doug Martin, and you just don't, you never know. So for me, it wouldn't have been the only one that I would have had a problem with would be Vincent Jackson, because Vincent Jackson is continually producing on offense. It may not be as much as it was in the past, but he's still the go-to guy that the quarterback can get those first downs with as the game progresses.
Okay. So what did you think of the Casillas trade? I'm just curious.
Um, I was a little bit disappointed. I know that they have to have some kind of plan in mind. I thought Casillas played solid. He didn't give up a whole lot of plays, and I thought that he would be that guy. But it's potentially possible that the Bucs were not going to re-sign him. So if you could get value out of him for the draft, then why not? Basically you've got one win all season so far, and why not try to get the best value that you can out of these players that may not come back the next year.
Okay. So one of the big weaknesses of the Bucs offense was the Bucs offensive line at the beginning of the season, and that was one of the reasons why they made the move to get Mankins. I haven't watched a whole lot of the Bucs the last couple of weeks, so has that offensive line improved as the year has gone on, or is it still kind of a question mark?
It's improved some, but it's inconsistent. They'll hold up for a whole quarter, no problem, and then all of a sudden there's a breakdown, and you have a sack or a sack fumble, or the one thing that I do see is they're not creating running lanes for our running backs. So they are very suspect. You never know from one game to the next how they're gonna be. And with the move making O'Neal Cousins as a starter, which I still shake my head about that. I do not know how he's playing in the NFL. I don't know. But he's just as soon as I see his name, I'm like, oh goodness. And I actually watched a play where he actually got spun around. He was supposed to be blocking somebody. Every offensive lineman has a body on somebody except for him, and he's standing there looking lost. So, I mean, that just tells you what kind of player he is.
Yeah. O'Neal Cousins is one of those guys. Why does he continue to collect an NFL paycheck?
Yeah, exactly. E.J. Biggers was another one.
Yeah.
That's a name that I loved seeing across on the other side. Especially when it was
I'm sure you did.
EJ, because you were guaranteed either a pass interference,
or a touchdown,
or a 10-plus yard catch. Every single play that EJ Biggers on that side was targeted.
And what's funny? It's really funny. I'm sorry, but this is hilarious. When I watch ESPN and they show clips of the Buccaneers in years past, EJ Biggers is on almost every single one, getting burnt, chasing somebody down into the end zone.
Yeah. Almost every. It's ridiculous. I love it. It's funny to see. A lot of them are like Atlanta, Julio Jones or Roddy White destroying him.
Yeah.
So I can't complain. Or even Tony Gonzalez beating him deep, which was funny.
Yeah.
Tony Gonzalez beat him on a 25-yard catch. That was hilarious.
Yeah.
Not gonna lie.
He's Washington's problem now, so
A lot of people.
I could outrun Tony Gonzalez right now.
So, what do you guys think as far as the score? What are you guys thinking here?
I think it's going to be a lot closer than the last game.
Well, most definitely.
I do think Atlanta's going to hold up a lot better against your pass rush because they're starting Ryan Schrader instead of Gabe Karimi. That's been made official. Thank God, because Karimi sucks.
Yeah.
I think Atlanta's going to... I think the offense gets back on track this week against a mediocre defense with a solid pass rush. I do think that they hold up better. I do think Atlanta holds up better against the Buccaneer pass rush than Cleveland did, because Cleveland's had some issues with their left tackle not really playing great this year.
Yeah.
As good as Joe Thomas is, he's just not had a great season.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm going to go 28 to 24 Atlanta. And Atlanta gets a fourth quarter touchdown for the first time since the Bengals game. And Mike Smith is 5-1 off a bye, so I'm kind of like, yeah, give Mike Smith 2 weeks against the Buccaneers. If he loses it, he should be fired on the spot.
Wow. I don't know whether to be. I don't even know how to take that. I don't know if that's a shot. I don't know if that's a shot against our team. Is that a shot against our team or a shot against him?
Yeah.
It's a
Both.
shot against both. Because Mike Smith is the reason why the Falcons have lost 5 straight games. Because when you either have a lead in those 5 games, in 4 of those 5 games, you have a lead going into the fourth quarter, there's no reason to lose any of those 5 games, or any of those 4 games.
Right.
Or if you're down by a touchdown and it's a winnable situation, there is no reason to lose that game. That's a coaching failure.
Yeah.
You've
Well,
got
like I said in the beginning of the show,
we're down by a touchdown. If you have a winnable situation going into the fourth quarter, you've got the talent to win the game.
right.
Coaching issue. That's my perspective on it. The talent's there. The drive is there. The coach is putting guys in the wrong spots and making them look stupid. That's coaching.
So what has changed over the years that makes him such a horrible coach when he was taking the team to the playoffs and going, doing, big double-digit wins and during the regular season? What's changed with this coach from that time to this time?
In 2012, he played defensive ends at defensive end and defensive tackles at defensive tackle. In 2014, he's played a defensive tackle and a linebacker at defensive end, and he's played nose tackles and a 3-4 defensive end at tackle. It doesn't make sense. The scheme on defense has not made sense all season up until the Ravens game when it was.
Now, do you have the same defensive coordinator that you've always had?
It changed in 2012. It went from Brian Van Gorder, who was a moron, to Mike Nolan, who I thought was a lot smarter because 2012 made him look good, who is now looking like an even bigger moron. And I'm a big Mike Nolan fan, but I don't know if it's his defense. I don't know if it's Mike Smith's defense. I don't know if it's the combination of them. And they're like, what are all the bad ideas we can put together? Because they're not going to fire us, kind of thought. But I don't know. I think at the end of the season, Mike Smith is going to retire. That's what I think is going to happen. Because Arthur Blank's not going to fire him. He's just going to be like, all right, you're fired. But if you retire, I'll give you a year's worth of salary just to leave me the hell alone. And to say thank you for your 5 years of goodness and your 2 years of badness.
Okay.
I have a different opinion than Scott. I do think talent is an issue. I think those teams had John Abraham. Those teams had Babineau in their prime. Those teams had a Sean Witherspoon. They even had a Curtis Lofton, who wasn't very good, but he's better than the linebackers they have now. Those teams had a Brent Grimes. They had even Thomas Deku.
And here's my view on that. Why has Prince Shembo played 7 snaps on defense over the last 3 games?
Because he's not very good.
Or 4 snaps on defense over the last 3 games. It's not because he's not very good. He's better than Joplo Bartu.
Well, Joplo Bartu's one of the worst linebackers in the league, so that's not really saying anything.
He's a better coverage player than Bartu is. He's a better pass rusher than Bartu is, especially from that A-gap. Paul Warlow is a better pass rusher than Bartu is. Paul Warlow's looked better with Shembo next to him than he has with Bartu next to him. And that's the truth.
It's a difference. You got linebackers that aren't good. It doesn't matter who you play; they're not good. So that's what I would say. I think talent. I do think coaching is a problem. Don't get me wrong. I think the coaching.
I'm not saying that.
Would you say this? Let me ask you. Would you say this then? Would you say that you had so much talent on that team that it covered up the poor coaching? Would that be a fair assessment then?
I'm saying on the 2008 to 2012 teams, that's a very fair assessment. And with no injuries essentially on those teams, that's a very fair assessment. The talent on those teams overshadowed the coaching. Matt Ryan saved Mike Smith's ass way too often those years. Todd McClure at center, ever since he retired, the Falcons have gone to crap because the offensive line has gone to crap. Now, the offensive line looked better the first 4 games this year, up until Joe Hawley's injury, because he's basically Todd McClure Part 2. And then it went to crap. Because, again, center is important. And Peter Kahns is an idiot.
I would agree with that.
I
I would say about the coaching. I think what happened in those years prior to 2013 with the Falcons was that they had enough talent to win the way that they wanted to win, which was basically play discipline, don't make mistakes, don't turn the ball over, don't get penalties, and they won a lot of close games that really they probably shouldn't have won. And so their record was probably better. They had the best record in one-score games than any team in the league from 2008 to 2012. They literally won like 75% of their games when average team should have won only 50%. Even the Patriots, I think, only won like 40% of their games, one-score games. So I think what ended up happening was once you undermined that talent and you took away some of those key players on those teams, like a Tony Gonzalez, like a John Abraham, et cetera, you couldn't play that style of football and win those games anymore. And so what's ended up happening last year, they lost all those close games at the beginning of the year, and then Julio Jones got hurt, and he was 98% of their offense, and their offense tanked until Roddy White came back. And this year, their offense is even more reliant on Julio Jones than it was last year because they don't even have Roddy White being Roddy White from last year because Roddy White isn't good anymore.
The last two games, Roddy's looked pretty solid.
He's produced, but I wouldn't, I don't think he's passed the eyeball test. He's still
against the Lions, they were lining him up in the slot, and he was doing everything that Tony Gonzalez used to do.
Yeah.
So if they keep him in that role and start using, I don't know, Devin Hester as the number 2 or Harry Douglas as the number 2 and like kind of throw the ball their way, I don't see an issue with that. And Lolo even looks solid against the Lions.
Yeah. He's okay for 2 passes a game.
Well, they only targeted him twice, and he caught both passes, so I can't complain. Both against DeAndre Levy, who's a pretty damn good linebacker, too.
I think the team basically played a style of football that, and I think what ends up happening is that people thought they were better than what they were in those years, and they can't play that style of football anymore, and it's all come crumbling down because they've missed on too many free agents, they've missed on too many draft picks, their coaching hasn't really improved the last couple of years, and they're sort of sticking to the formula that got them to where they were in 2012, 10 yards from the Super Bowl, but that formula doesn't work with the current players. And I think that's the coaching failure coupled with the talent failure that brings a complete regime failure that you now have with the Falcons right now. That's right.
Absolutely. And, I can definitely relate.
Quarterback winning games in the fourth quarter isn't a way to win long term? Who would have thought? The people that kept saying, why doesn't Mike Smith put his foot on the pedal? Why doesn't he stomp on these people's throats? People have been complaining about Mike Smith not having that killer instinct and instilling it within the team. Why do you think I want Rex Ryan or Hugh Jackson here? Both of them have that, let's go this team up instinct in them. Both those guys have that. You give Hugh Jackson a good group of talent like what Atlanta has, and then build the defense up a little bit, I think Atlanta will be fine next year. But right now...
And, that's kind of what you guys were saying. I can really relate to it because, as I mentioned earlier, we've had the same problems with missing on free agents and missing on draft picks. And, for the Buccaneers organization, this draft is going to identify this regime quite a bit because of the players that we've traded and the draft picks that we've gotten. If we can't hit on these draft picks coming up at the end of this, coming up next year, it's going to be a long season. So, like you guys, where you guys have missed on free agents and missed on a lot of draft picks, we're kind of in the same boat.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Falcons 2015 is a very important draft for them as well. I think if they don't hit on some of these picks, particularly, they tend to do pretty well in the first and generally the second round picks if you
absolutely
excuse Peter Cons. But it's after that point that they tend to struggle and they don't hit enough home runs or doubles or whatever you want to call it. But I think both teams are in the same position. I think this week and for at least the foreseeable future, because I do think this game is going to come down to the team that adjusts better. And those haven't been the strong suits of either coaching staff, I would say, this year. And I guess I would probably, answer your earlier question about a score prediction. I'd probably say 20-17, and whoever makes the better adjustments gets the 20. I would like to believe that because the Falcons are coming out of a bye, they had an extra week to prepare for this game, that they'll be able to throw at least one more wrinkle at the Bucs. But based off of the way they've played the last couple of weeks and sort of schemed, I'm not that confident that that's going to happen. So we'll see what happens on Sunday.
All right.
How about you?
I'm looking at probably 24-17. It's going to be a close game, and I definitely agree that whoever makes the adjustments in the second half that's the team that will win. I've seen a lot of good things from Atlanta that they do. It's just not consistent. I've seen some play calling, just like you guys were talking about before, but I've always thought that Mike Smith was a good coach. I haven't really studied the team in depth like you guys have. I've seen when you guys have played, if there's like an evening game or something like that, I'll catch it. Or if I have time on NFL Rewind, I'll check out some snaps just to kind of see what's going on. But like you guys are naming off players that I'm really not familiar with because I haven't really seen them get a lot of playing time. So, I'm excited about this game, like I said, and it's going to be close, but I do think that the Bucs do have a chance to win.
Okay. Scott, you want to get into these mailbag questions?
Oh, of course. Cedric asks, why do we change the tempo up in the second half? First half, we spread the ball. Second half, boring. Hashtag number 39. AKA, tired of Steven Jackson.
I would say last week against the Lions, it was a head scratcher because early in the game, they ran some play action. They went 4 wide receivers, and they got the Lions playing on their heels. Then in the second half, and based off of some of Dirk Cutter's post-game comments, it seemed like they were very afraid of what the Lions would be able to do in the second half, dialing up their pass rush. And, that confuses me because, A, you can slow down their pass rush by running the football. They didn't run the football in the second half. They ran it on 5 of their first 16 plays in the second half with a 2-score lead. Didn't make any sense. Attack 7 guys blocking, send out Julio Jones and Roddy White, and then maybe sneak Toilolo or Patrick DeMarco out into the route late. And as I said, Roddy White's not a good receiver at this point in time in his career. Maybe he'll get better as the season wears on. Maybe he'll get better next year. But I honestly believe that the Falcons can find a better receiver on the street than what Roddy White is giving them. And when you basically are playing with one receiver, it doesn't matter what the protection is. If you have 7, 8 guys protecting, he's not going to get open because there's 5 guys covering one guy. And basically the Falcons offense stalled. I don't know why they did that. I personally think they didn't use enough of Steven Jackson in the second half of the game. The one thing that Steven Jackson is a hammer. He's the guy that you put in there when you have a lead and you want to wear down a defense. They gave him 3 carries in the second half. And they're giving Devontae Freeman and Anton Smith and Jacquizz Rodgers these runs up the middle that they should be giving to Steven Jackson. I didn't understand it. I thought the Falcons' second half game plan was totally idiotic, but hey, what do I know? I'm just some guy.
I don't understand why the Falcons don't just run a zone blocking scheme. They've got the speed on the line to do it. With Schrader, you got mainly like 305-pounders plus Blalock. Like everybody 305 to 310 pounds, and then you've got Justin Blalock, who's 325-ish, 335-ish, but he's quick. Mm-hmm. So they could run a zone blocking scheme pretty well and probably do well. And this is what I was saying last year. Run the zone blocking scheme. You have pass protectors who don't know how to run block. When you don't know how to run block, you run the zone blocking scheme because anybody can run the zone blocking scheme.
The one thing I did notice about that game was the Atlanta Falcons played not to lose, and I think that's what hurt them in that game. They didn't play to win. You have some coaches that it's natural for them to play to win. I want to win this game, and I'll do whatever I can to win this game. But you have other coaches that look at it like, well, I'm not going to run this play because I could potentially lose this game. So I just think the mentality changed, and I think they pretty much schemed everything down. I don't know. The Atlanta Falcons just don't have the swagger that they used to have. I don't know if that comes from personnel or coaching or what it is, but the players walked out there when they came on the field. They thought they were going to win every game they came out there for, and in the second half they did not look like that Atlanta Falcons team, that dominant Atlanta Falcons team.
Let's put it this way. I know you can't say a lot about injuries, but I'm just going to list 4 names that are on injured reserve right now and tell you why they're important. Joe Hawley, Sean Weatherspoon, William Moore, and Sam Baker. Now, I think Sam Baker's garbage on the field. I think he's trash. I think he was the worst starting left tackle in the NFL that was actually keeping his job year to year since 2009. That being said, he's the leader in the locker room, and they miss him. Joe Hawley, on the other hand, I think was on the verge of really breaking out and becoming a top 5 to 10 center in that range in the NFL and looking like the next Todd McClure. He was calling protections extremely well, and he was the leader. He was the mouthpiece of the offensive line. He was the guy that said, these guys are trying to dog us. Let's go them up. That was Joe Hawley. That's why that name is important. Sean Weatherspoon was that for the defense. Sean Weatherspoon was the heart and soul of that Falcons defense. And his, partner in crime was William Moore. It's no shock that in college that those two had their best season when they were on the defense together. It's no shock that in the pros that when they're both healthy, the Falcons defense doesn't just look competent. It looks, dare I say, good. Because they bring that added fire. They bring that added element that the Falcons are missing right now on defense. It's not just playing guys in the right spot. Yeah, there's coaching issues. But I think with a fully healthy Falcons team, it's a completely different Falcons team. I think if the Falcons don't have 5 guys on injured reserve that are offensive linemen, the team's closer to 6-2 than they are 2-6. Which is why I keep arguing with Aaron that it's not a personnel issue. Which is why I keep arguing with him that it's a coaching issue, because coaching is what overcomes injuries. Coaching is what lights that fire in these guys if their leaders are on injured reserve. That's why I want Rex Ryan in Atlanta somehow. Whether it's his defensive coordinator or head coach. Get him an offensive coordinator who says, hey, Matt Ryan, what do you like to do? Hey, look, the offensive line is a little undersized and very quick, so zone blocking. Hey, the running backs are all very undersized and quick, and Steven Jackson's going to get cut. So definitely zone blocking. That's what I want to see. I want to see them go, you know what? What does our personnel do well? Let's coach to them. Let's scheme to them. Where do they win as players? And let's adjust the team to where these players are in roles where they win. Roddy White, where does he win? Now he's an underneath, 5 to 10 yard in, or 5 to 15 yard in, 5 to 15 yard slant, that kind of guy. That's where he wins. So what do? Make him run that route every fucking time. It's not rocket science here, Aaron. It's not.
That's not going to happen. That's what I'm just saying. It's not going to happen.
Where does Julio win? Everywhere. So use him everywhere. Where does Devin Hester win? A deep and a screen. That's Devin Hester. Where does Harry Douglas
win? Devin Hester has never been really featured as a wide receiver. I mean, he's a weapon for kickoff returns. I mean, even when he was in Chicago, I don't remember him being that featured weapon on the offense.
But in Atlanta, with Matt Ryan, with a quarterback that actually likes him and he actually gets along with, because Jay Cutler's a douchebag.
Yeah, he is.
All right, with a quarterback that actually enjoys Devin Hester's company, he hasn't dropped a pass.
Yeah, he's been playing better in Atlanta than he ever did in Chicago, and he should be used
on 24 targets. The issue there isn't the 18 catches. The issue there is the 24 targets. 263 yards on these targets, a touchdown, which was solid. Forced missed tackles, does not fumble. Matt Ryan hasn't thrown a pick his way yet. Maybe they're just designing these special routes for Hester to succeed on. Oh, wait, where he wins. That's what it's about.
Yeah.
You scheme to where a guy wins. You scheme to where he wins. You scheme to how he plays. And that's why it's coaching. Yes, do the Falcons need some more talent? Yes. Every team needs more talent. Every single team in the NFL doesn't have the talent that they really wish they could have had.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
No matter how you look at that, that's just the truth.
Well, you chalk that up to the general manager. That's their job, is to bring talent in.
Every general manager misses on picks, and every general manager misses on free agents. That's just the nature of the beast. If you look at
absolutely,
some of them are higher and some of them are lower. Thomas Dimitroff is a little bit lower on the free agents and a little bit higher on the draft picks for what hits. Where, say, I don't know, who is it that's mainly on free agents this year that's really doing well? I can't think of a team that's living off of free agents.
They're not. Actually, there was some stat that showed that all the teams with losing records have the vast majority of the free agents.
It's usually how it goes.
Because you can't build a team through free agency. You just can't. It won't be a long-term. It's not a long-term fix.
Because the guys that make it to free agency are the guys that teams either don't want or headaches in the locker room. Like Albert Hainsworth.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's who it is. Albert Hainsworth. That's the kind of guy you'll see. Ray Edwards. He made free agency, but Charles Johnson didn't. That would have thrown the red flag up in my head about him. Maybe there's an issue off of him.
Yeah. Well, you know that Richie Incognito is still available. He might be able to bolster your offensive line.
Atlanta doesn't need a guard. What would he do? John Asamoah playing like a top, 14, 15 guard overall.
Mm-hmm.
And Justin Blalock's playing like a, top 15, 20 guard overall. So where's the need for a guard?
Yeah.
And
we don't need
a trader good this week going against Ezekiel Ansah and George Johnson.
Yeah. Okay, next mailbag question. Lee Ayers asks, what's the line on Massaquoy's pass rushing snaps for Sunday?
Because they're playing the Buccaneers, they're going to go, he did pretty well against Collins last time, and he did pretty well against bad offensive tackles earlier in the year. Yeah, let's throw him out there. So I'm going to go with 60+%, because I'm not going to give you a snap number because it all depends on the total defensive plays. If Tampa only has 40 offensive snaps, Massaquoi will see 25 of them. If Tampa has 80 offensive snaps, I think Massaquoi will see 50-ish of them.
I think he's had 19.7 the last 3 games. So I would say over under 20. He gets decent action over and under. So I'd probably say 20. But if I was betting, I might take the under. Yeah, under 20.
I'm going to take the over. I'm going to say 25+, unless Tampa's leading and they're just running all day. Which I don't see Tampa doing that.
You will see a lot of running though this weekend.
Yeah, I don't think you'll see a lot of that.
Okay. Andrew Shaiwala asks, with the Falcons having most of their money spent on the offensive side of the ball and most of the weapons on that side as well, do you think they go after a defensive kind of coach or an offensive mind?
I don't honestly care who they bring in as long as their names are Hugh Jackson and Rex Ryan. And Rex Ryan, the defensive coordinator, with Hugh Jackson, the head coach, I'd be perfectly happy with.
I would say I don't know. I don't think that's really going to matter a whole lot. I would say, yeah, I don't think that, the fact that, they have Matt Ryan and they have Julio Jones means that they're going to favor a defensive coach next time. I don't think that's really going to make a difference. I think Arthur Blank legitimately is going to hire the person he thinks is the best man for the job, and whether that's an offensive mind or a defensive mind, I don't think it's going to make a difference. For preference-wise, I don't, ultimately, I think the downfall of a lot of defensive-minded head coaches is that they have no imagination when it comes to playing offense. And they're like Lovie Smith, Mike Smith, and they're like Rex Ryan, who basically believe we're just going to run the football, and I don't really care anything else. As long as my quarterback doesn't throw picks, I don't really care about anything else the offense is going to do. I think with a quarterback like Matt Ryan, that's probably not a positive thing to have for your head coach. I would say, on the other hand, if you have an offensive-minded head coach, doesn't necessarily, ideally you get a Sean Payton type of dude who's going to basically build an offense that's going to score 50 points a game. But, that's easier said than done. There's a lot of teams that hire offensive-minded coaches thinking that's going to happen, and that never happens. So, for me, I don't really care which way they go. As long as they get somebody, if they get a defensive guy, get somebody that at least understands, hey, maybe we should try to score 30 points in a game. If they get an offensive guy, then get somebody that can score 50 points a game. So.
How about a guy?
I think what it should honestly come down to is who can get the most out of their players. Get their players them up for success. Play to their strengths and not their weaknesses. Depends on what that coach has in mind.
Okay.
So basically what I was saying and where he wins. Find out where these guys win and play them in that way.
Okay. All right, we got 2 questions from Andre Churivong at the Factory Rapper. Do the Falcons beat the Bucs by less than a touchdown?
I said yes. I say 4 points. So that's less than a touchdown.
Yeah. And he also has a question. Scott, what is your short list of head coaches?
All right. It is a little bit longer than just those 2 names. But 1, Hugh Jackson. 2, Rex Ryan. 3, there's a guy out in Arizona named Todd Bowles who is just dominating with the defensive side of the ball. Give him a good offensive coordinator. I think he'd be some fun. And then 4 is Ray Horton out in Tennessee. I think he'd be some fun too. Now the 5th name is going to throw some people. You know how you say offensive or defensive or whatever? I say special teams coordinator. I say give Keith Armstrong the ball. Let him run with it. Let him hire his own staff and go that way. Maybe you don't need to get rid of all of the coaching, because maybe not all of the coaching is the issue. Maybe it's just the philosophy from the top down and the mandate with the offensive coordinator and the defensive coordinator, who were once known as aggressive and are now known as conservative because of Mike Smith. Maybe that's what's got to happen. Maybe Keith Armstrong says, you know what? I don't want to use my special teams units unless they're kicking extra points or kicking off. That's all I want to teach them. So I say Keith Armstrong would make a fun head coach because he reminds me a lot of not Jim Harbaugh, sorry, John Harbaugh, the good one.
Okay.
Aaron, who are your head coaches?
I'll preface it by saying that I don't really have a preference, but these are the names that I think of when I'm thinking of people that I like what they do. I like Ray Horton. I like Hugh Jackson. I like Adam Gase. I like who's the other defensive coordinator? I forget him. I like Jim Harbaugh. Those probably be my guys. Who is the other defensive coordinator? I'll think of it, but yeah.
Jim Schwartz?
No.
Kevin Coyle? Matt Patricia? Dennis Thurman? Dan Pease? Paul Gunther? Jim O'Neill? Dick LeBeau? Romeo Crennel? Greg Minuski? Bob Leonard? Ray Horton, Jack Del Rio, Bob Sutton, Jason Tarver, John Pagano, Chucky's good friend. Sorry, Chucky's brother. Rod Marinelli, Perry Fuel.
What's this dude? Hold on, I gotta look it up now. Now you perked my interest. It was another defensive coordinator.
Terrell Austin. That's all I'm naming. I'm going down the league. Dom Capers, George Edwards.
Dan Quinn, that's who it was.
Oh, I hadn't gotten to the NFC West yet.
Yeah. And we went at this all night. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't want Dan Quinn.
Okay, that's fine.
There's Carroll, and then there's his Belichickian disciples that are all gonna fail.
Basically.
That's the way I look at it. Pete Carroll's a monster head coach because he's a weird mix of insanity and intelligence all at the same time.
Okay.
That's why I like him as a head coach.
Okay, last question is not really a question, but a rant. Dustin Smith asks, last week was the final straw. 25 long-suffering years as a fan, and I finally realized I'll never see a winner.
Enjoy being a Saints fan, Dustin. Peace.
Yeah, I think Dustin. I think the Falcons will be a winner. If that means winning a Super Bowl, I think the odds are pretty high that if you stick around for another 25 years, you'll get to see one Super Bowl. Now, you may have to wait 24 years for that to happen, but I do think if you give it another 25 years, you might see that winner once. Odds, at least statistically speaking, mathematically speaking, it's a pretty good chance that that's going to happen. But we're Falcon fans, so it ain't going to come easy. So
no, not at all. It never will.
All right, Gene. That's our show. We appreciate you coming on, and people can see your Twitter handle. That's @superheavyweight. And Gene, where can people find other stuff from you?
Actually, I'm doing a show with my friend here on Wednesdays. That's basically it. I just kind of started getting into it where I'm actually talking. I was doing Spreecast where I was doing unsportsmanlike conduct, but I've kind of been working so much I haven't really been able to get into it, but I'm starting to get back into it a little bit more.
All right, well, check out his stuff there, and we'll be back to talk trash if the Falcons win, and you won't hear a chirp from us if the Bucs win, so that's the way it goes.
Hey, thanks a lot for having me on the show. I really appreciate it.
Not a problem. We're glad to have you on.
All right.
And we should say for people that were tuning in for that Justin Blalock interview, because of technical difficulties, we won't be able to play it on this show. But if you check out Pro Football Central's audio version of this later this week, you will be able to hear that interview in its entirety.
Actually, I'm posting a link on the Twitter feed for our Falcon Central Radio. I'm also going to post a link on my own personal Twitter feed for those that want to listen to it now. I was just unable to get it to play through Google Hangouts, so we are going to have it edited in right about here for the audio version.